run again, I thought. But I was originally in the district of Jim McGovern, and it was an interesting time. Anyway,
for some reason there were a lot of activity in Holliston.
What's that?
There was a lot of activity in Holliston. There were several candidates, and the head of the Greater Boston Tea Party all came from Holliston.
Christian Barley was there, right? So, so Edward and I have known each other for a while, mostly through the Citizens for Limited Taxation and the Friday meetings that they have over in Lexington. And I was very happy that he invited me to come and be the speaker. I should say I gave this talk originally. I gave a talk on Obamacare originally to the Northborough Tea Party, and they were very helpful to me throughout my elections. This guy named John O'Mara out there, who I think is the best Tea Party guy around in terms of just sheer energy and activity and going out and arranging protests and things like that. So I gave a talk out there, and then again at the Plymouth Rock Tea Party. They were both a little bit bigger, and so in this case I'm saying, you know, let me tell you, all I'm going to do tonight is preach to the choir. But, you know, preaching to the choir is very entertaining because the choir really likes what you're telling them, and they're generally kind of willing to chime in with their own stories and their own, you know, views of point of view on things. So by all means do so. Don't make, you know, don't necessarily, let's not make it a lecture, just happy to make it a discussion.
I hope that in the future I will be able to have a group with more than one side represented, which is something easier to do in JP than many other places. So you won't you won't just be preaching to the choir, and it may get a little feistier.
Yeah. Well, in point of fact, you know, my feeling has been, you know, as Edward has said, I work at Harvard, and I guess according to Julie, I'm not the only one who works at Harvard. And at Harvard, you know, being a conservative is a serious liability. You know, for a long time I never mentioned it to anyone, and you know, at Harvard you have to sort of talk in code if you think that there's another conservative. Like, if you think somebody's a conservative, you say to them, well, I've got to go now. In fact, I have to rush. and sort of, you hope they get that, or you kind of make the secret tea across the room for tea party. And you know, but how
many of them do you think would even know what a Gadsden flag is?
Well, they actually,
at this point, maybe now.
A friend of mine met me outside the elevator after I'd shown my face on the cover of the Harvard Crimson, and he says, "You're running for Congress as a Republican." And I said, you know, give me a thing. He said, no, I want to support you because I'm a Tea Party guy. And I was like, I've known this guy for 5 years and I'd never known anything. So in fact, we have now a regular conservative group meeting of Harvard conservatives, and there are a bunch of pretty good people over there. A guy named Neil Ferguson, a guy named Harvey Mansfield, a bunch of people. Anyway. So
do you have anybody with high cheekbones?
We are looking for our first Cherokee member, but so far we've not gotten anybody to join us. But you know, one thing you do learn being a conservative at Harvard is it really pays to have an insight into what the other side thinks. And in fact, I've been carrying this around with me lately. It's just by chance, didn't happen to, wasn't going to talk about it, but have you ever read this one? I recommend it.
Elizabeth Warren?
The Two-Income Trap by Elizabeth Warren and Amelia Warren Tiagi, that's her daughter, written in 2004, 2003, somewhere around there. And it's just basically a kind of a discussion of bankruptcies and the middle class in America, and it's incredibly insipid, you know, very light and stupid, but there are a lot of very insightful things in there, which I think really gives you kind of a clue into the mind of the way they think. Because face it, I mean, you know, the conservatives I meet here in Massachusetts, especially in the Boston area, we're all thinking all the time, how on earth are they thinking? what exactly is going through their minds? Because it just, it has a coherence in its own weird way. It makes sense, but it's really the negative, the negative image of the way a lot of us think. Anyway, so I don't like to always preach to the choir. I'd rather sometimes have people who have exactly the opposite.
Let's plan on that in the future, doing something about that.
Well,
Because I have occasionally talked to and we have one of them around here, the JP Progressives.
yeah.
A rather larger group than us, but they're not intimidated by us, and they know that in their sense they end up preaching to the choir too.
Yeah.
So they're maybe not averse to setting up a discussion if we frame the issue right.
Well, so in point of fact, I think that progressives and liberals, generally speaking, have more trouble talking to people who are ideologically different from them than conservatives do. The few that I talk with sometimes get very angry at me for some of the things I say. Anyway, so let's make it a discussion. Please leave it in, talk about Obamacare. I'm not